Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. Hello, everyone. Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. My guest today is Marlo Ellis. She is the founder and visionary of The Uncommon Woman and Rose Gold Leadership. How are you today, Marlo?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Brad?
I'm wonderful. How was your evening last night?
It was beautiful. It's a really beautiful spring evening here in Thunder Bay. Yeah, it's lovely.
Did you guys get any snow? I was talking to someone in Sudbury, and they got hit with a lot of snow today.
No, but apparently there's like a polar vortex going through. I don't know. I try not to think about it so I don't call it in.
Excellent.
Focus forward, right?
Yes, yeah. That's right. So you're a champion for feminine leaders. Can you tell us a bit about The Uncommon Woman and what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. So The Uncommon Woman is a platform that I created a few years ago now. Really, that is to support women who have stories of strength from struggle. It's really just a place that I created because I needed it in my own life. Back in 2012, I left an abusive relationship. And at the time, there really weren't the platforms that you see now. Obviously, there's been such a shift in social media. Think about what's happened over the last 8 years, right?
Yeah.
So back in 2012, there weren't quite the same there wasn't the same level of honesty and vulnerability coming forward out in social media. And so I wanted to create a platform where women could share and talk openly and vulnerably about what was going on in their lives, about all aspects of their lives, relationships, diagnosis, family, all of it, abuse, anything that they'd experienced in their childhood. But what I recognized was that there was actually quite a need for it. And so it grew rapidly. And what I quickly came to see was that so many women really just needed safe spaces to share and to have conversation and have meaningful conversation about some of the things that were really important to them that they were carrying. And the leadership piece of it is that so often women who are in positions of leadership are carrying those kinds of things, in their kind of like the dark corners of their soul, because to expose your pain, to expose your maybe your abuse story or your addiction story, that kind of stuff, can lead to all kinds of criticism and who knows what else, right? So Rose Gold Leadership is kind of an extension of the Uncommon Woman for women who are in positions of leadership who have really powerful stories, but they don't necessarily want to, just step forward into any kind of a public space.
Yeah.
And then the Uncommon Woman is just for everybody, all people who have stories of strength and struggle and want to come together and talk about them and meet other women who possibly have similar stories.
So you're basically providing an outlet for these women, a safe space, as you said, and an outlet for them to feel comfortable enough to share their stories and also hear other women's stories to let them know that they're not the only ones going through it. They're not alone in this, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So you started this organization to help women. Can you tell us a bit about how, from your journey, if you don't mind, how your journey began and where it came from personally for you to start the organization?
Yeah. So I was a gym owner for several years back in, 2010 through 2015.
Right.
And in that time, that's when I got into an abusive relationship and then left that same relationship. And what happened with me, because I was a leader in my community, I had built this incredible space for women to come and get fit and healthy. I was finding myself in this leadership role, right?
Yeah.
That was very front and center, not only in the community, but with my clients. And I was keeping my own pain stories very much private because of the leadership role that I had. And I was worried about how that would be seen by my clients and by other people in the community. But over time, that pain story, that abuse and everything that was going on behind closed doors became really corrosive in my own life. And I ended up spiraling into patterns of addiction and depression and suicidal ideations. And it was really a dark time in my life. And when I kind of came out of that and I started recognizing that there was a need for spaces for people, women in particular, to talk with other people about their stories and share and look for support, I saw that there wasn't much of that out there. And so in 2015, I actually closed my gym to step into creating those spaces. And that's when the Uncommon Woman was born. It was actually born in 2016.
Okay.
And it started off as just like a free space on Facebook, a private Facebook group.
Right.
And it kind of expanded from there. And I recognized that women were really looking for support systems and programs and things put in place so that they could lean in and learn and work through their fear. So it just kind of, I literally just one step at a time listened to what the tribe needed. And then if I felt like it was something that I could really talk on and share, then I would create that. And so that's how over the last 4 years, it's slowly grown. So now we have a private Facebook tribe. We have a pretty large Facebook community, a public community. I run live events. I run coaching programs and retreats.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you do meetups as well? Like, you know, how some post monthly meetups and things like that. You do that as well?
Yeah, actually what's happened recently is that I've decided to birth the Uncommon Woman chapters.
Okay.
And so I've done some meetups in the past and then left, right?
Right.
So, for example, I did a meetup in Toronto a few years ago prior to one of my live events. And when I left, you know, the women were wanting more. And at the time, I just didn't have the bandwidth to create all of the things because, you know, you can do everything, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so I just backed up the bus and I said in a few years. So 2020 is actually the year of the Uncommon Woman chapter. So right now we have 4. We have one in Mexico that's being created and
amazing.
So there's Mexico.
That's quite a reach.
Yeah. Well, I have a really great community of women, a global community. And it just so happens that I have a connection to Mexico because I lived there for many years.
Okay.
And I can speak some Spanish. And so there's a woman in the tribe who is American actually, and she's living in Mexico and she really felt like there was a need for that. So there's Mexico and then Brandon, Thunder Bay, and Rocky Mountain House. So just outside of Calgary. So we're starting at 4 and we'll grow. So yes to meetups, yes to chapters, and those smaller pockets are really important.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you refer to the community as tribe. I love that. I love that word.
Yeah.
I love how you use that.
We're really
word.
close.
That's amazing. So is the plan to expand across Canada?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in 2018, I did what's called the Uncommon Woman online tour, the Uncommon Woman live tour. I just did an online tour recently. So that's on
because of the world we're in right now.
Right. Exactly. But we hit Toronto, Thunder Bay, Calgary, and Vancouver, and it was a massive success.
Awesome.
And so I saw,
congratulations.
Thank you. I saw that there was a need for this kind of community and this kind of platform across Canada. So yes, the goal is to go across Canada with the chapters and start small, get it dialed in. I've already had some women reach out to me and say, hey, can I start a chapter here? And so I think we're actually going to expand quicker than we originally thought, just because of the state of the world right now. Women are really wanting connection, but they need to do it virtually at the moment. So
I think it's amazing what you're doing. Incredible.
Thank you.
How many women would you say currently belong to the tribe, to the tribes that you have set up?
Yeah. Well, I always say that, across all my media platforms, there's 20,000 women.
Wow.
So far. However, I know that, I'm going to be honest, not all of them are active in the tribe, right? So the goal this year in 2020 is to hit, I would like to hit around 250,000. That's the goal for the tribe. And it's a big goal. But
that's very lofty.
Yeah, it's lofty. And I don't know if we'll do it or not, but it's really good to just set the intention because I do know that there are so many women out there that are really craving connection. And again, right now with everything that's going on, it's almost like there's more of an opportunity to tap into these spaces where women need some people to connect to and talk to about what's going on in their lives.
Oh, absolutely. This is, there's no time like it. I mean, this is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of this time and use it for good and to help women. And the timing couldn't be better, actually. So amazing. Kudos to you. That's an incredible goal. I'm blown away.
It's a big one. My team is sweating it out over there because, you know, wow. I'm like counting, right? We're counting down the days, but you know, we like to set these goals and then just work toward it. And whether we get to it or not, it's really not even the issue. Is more just whenever we set these kinds of goals, it expands our vision. And this is, that's the biggest.
It keeps you hungry. It keeps you ambitious, and it keeps you moving towards it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What excites you and ignites your passion about this group and what you do?
Well, what I've recognized is that I've never gotten tired of supporting women who have found their voices have been silenced. And, you know, there was a time where I was like, wow, you know, is this ever going to get old? Or am I ever going to, you know, feel worn out? Right.
Yeah.
And I don't. In fact, the more women that step forward and say, oh my gosh, I've been looking for a space like this, or I've been looking for a program like this, or I've been looking for somebody who got me, or a group of women who got me, and now I finally found it, and I feel like I've come home. Those kinds of conversations they reinforce the need for this kind of truth telling and for spaces like this. And I feel like at this point in time, it's just now more than ever, we need to start speaking up and speaking our truth and kind of like unloading some of the toxicity and the darkness that we've been carrying around for so long. And so I get really lit up about that. And, you know, this is the original vision of the Uncommon Woman, was to create platforms for women to share their stories of strength and struggle in the hopes of them not only sharing their stories for their own healing, but for healing of others. Yeah. And whenever I run a live event and I watch women in the tribe stand on the stage and share their story, and then I get to see the response of the audience to them, I just realize how important this work is and how much I love it, how fulfilling it is.
Well, I'm sure the individual women's stories also help inspire you too.
Oh gosh.
Every woman has a different story, so that's got to keep you motivated and keep you going too, right?
Absolutely. And you know, I've heard it all, right? And so often women will say, "Oh, I have a story, you know, a story like you've never heard," and I'll say, "Oh no, I've heard it." You know, there are women, and the point is that there are other women out there who have stories that are like that, and it's really important that people see that they're not alone in some of these stories, because they can be really devastating and heart-wrenching and painful. And so for women to know that they're not alone in that, it does alleviate some of that heaviness when you can have a conversation with somebody else who's, for example, you know, experienced sexualized violence by family member. You know, that's a really heavy thing to carry.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, I'm sure when you first started this whole thing, there were stories that you heard that you just couldn't believe. How do you deal with that internally yourself as a woman, and how does that help you push through and be more inspired and more ambitious, I guess is the word, to keep going?
That's a great question. And it's interesting because I always say, you know, I don't know if I'm a weirdo or what, but I can sit and hear a story and not internalize it. Okay. So I think I've really honed the skill of holding space, which is being able to be in a space with somebody and allow them to unload, but you don't carry it. Right. You don't own it. You just allow them to unload it onto the table per se. And then it just sits there. So I've gotten really good at that skill. However, I noticed that in 2019, I kind of had a bit of a breakdown in that I just energetically crashed. Right. And I think it was probably due to the fact that I had been on, you know, in fifth gear for 3 or 4 years, and I had heard a lot of stories, and I had experienced a lot of darkness through the eyes of the women in the tribe. Yeah. And, every once in a while you just stop and you think, really, is this what's really going on behind closed doors? And it can be disheartening. And I think that last year was the year where I kind of just stopped and allowed it to all flow through me.
Yeah.
And I came out of it being more compassionate and more driven and more determined than ever before to actually create more of a ministry, which is actually now what I have shifted into. So the Uncommon Woman, I had always referred to it as a movement. And after I came out of this time of breakdown and breakthrough and recognizing that we actually need more women out there speaking on the front lines, for those who no longer have a voice, I felt like it was really more of a ministry. So I've shifted into the Uncommon Woman, a ministry for women. And that feels really good to me. And I think that that's a product of me carrying or recognizing all of these stories, really the impact that they had on me.
Yeah.
And the collective over time. Yeah. So
I can't even imagine how you disassociate from the stories in that way. Not that you don't care or that you don't give a shit about what the story is, but to be able to take yourself out of it, take your feelings out of it. I can't even imagine how you're able to do that. Like I'm thinking about that right now. I couldn't even begin to know how to do that.
Right. Well, I think what I've learned, so the backstory on this is that as a child, my parents were very active in the church as elders and support systems for people who were really struggling. And as a little girl, I watched my parents hold space for people. Okay. And I have reflected on those times in my life and realized that I learned how to hold space at a very young age. And my parents would decompress when those people left. And I remember I would sit on the stairs and listen to them kind of, just decompress and share and then they would set it down. And so I believe that I've learned that skill. But like I said, there obviously is a level of me that has been impacted by these stories. And I think it's the piece of me that's determined.
Right.
But when I sit and I listen to a woman share her story, where my mind goes, Brad, is how can I change this?
Yeah.
How can I be part of this moving forward so that this never happens to anybody else? So that tends to be where my mind goes.
Okay.
At the same time. And so I go into kind of like problem solving mode, which is the way that my brain works. So
well, I would imagine you'd have to, because if you were unable to do it, you'd drive yourself insane. You wouldn't. I don't even know how you would be able to deal as a person, as a human, hearing all these horrible tragedies and not being able to separate or hold space. I love that term, hold space. I've never heard that before, so I like that term. Being able to hold space to allow the women to share, but not get so personally take on those battles that they've dealt with in their lives. I think that's a pretty incredible trait that you've been able to hone and master.
Well, thank you. I mean, I guess it's part of my DNA. I truly do believe that we're all tapped on the shoulder by divine source and said, okay, here's your job for the next
here's your
60
mission.
years.
Yeah.
And I think that I was also given a program, downloaded with a program of some sort that was like, and here's what you're going to need, right? Here's the program that you need to download in order for you to be able to do this work. And I think probably there's a piece of, there are people out there who call themselves empaths, right? Who hear a story like that and then they need to go and digest it and process it themselves for several days.
Right.
I don't necessarily have that.
Okay.
I have the problem solver piece in my programming. So yes, those stories obviously impact me as a woman and as a human being, but I'm able to kind of go, okay, so what do we need to do now? And I think that's why the women come to me, come to the tribe, because I'm able to actually do that with them and lift them, because they've probably been sharing these stories, if at all, for years with people who have sat with them in the darkness. And there comes a time when you want somebody to say, okay, I honor you, I see you, I get you, and I'm here to lift you. And that's my job.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, I know that you started the Uncommon Woman Project / gallery, where you had women write a word or a sentence or paragraph, for that matter, on themselves about how they want to feel, and then photograph that. I love the idea of it. Being a photographer, I love that. I think it's a brilliant idea. It gives an amazing space for outlet as well. How did you come up with the idea, and what's the response been like to this?
Well, the response, this happened in 2018. The story behind it is that there were, at the time, probably about 800 women in the tribe, in the private Facebook group. Now I think we have about 1,900. And, but only a handful of them, like maybe 5% of them are interacting. And I thought to myself, there's no way that there's all of these women in this tribe and they don't have anything to say. But I also understand that those spaces can be intimidating, and just because you don't say anything doesn't mean you don't feel anything. And so I was trying to come up with a way that would give more of the women in the community an opportunity to express themselves. And I had this idea. I was in the shower and I was trying to think of ways to get the group more interactive, really. It was like from a business perspective, how can I get these women talking more? Because it's like Silence of the Lambs in this group. And I know that they're here for a reason. And so I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll put up a picture of myself with a word on my body, and I'll share a bit of my story, and I'll flip it over into black and white so it looks really cool. And I'll just put it up in the group, and I'll invite women in the group to share a little bit of their story through their photograph.
Okay.
And it was just like I turned the key just a little bit more to the right, and it clicked, and the gate opened, and it was like a tsunami. And I think we had something like 60 or 70 women post their images within 2 or 3 weeks. It was like 1 or 2 a day. And actually it was so mind-blowing that at one point I showed it to somebody, and I don't remember who it was. And they said, Marlo, this is an art. This is a gallery. Like this is something that you put in an art gallery. So I actually downloaded all of the pictures onto a USB, and I took them to Walmart. Yeah. And I printed them all off. You can print them for nothing. Yeah. And I printed them off, and I laid them on my living room floor, and I just started sobbing. Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
Must have been incredibly emotional.
It was. I actually get emotional thinking about it. And I remember thinking, this is what the Uncommon Woman is all about. This right here is these stories that aren't being told. It's about the stories about the women who don't. It's not about the 10 women that do share as much as the other, 1,790 that aren't saying anything in that Facebook tribe. And they're the ones that are at risk. The ones who are sharing are now actually the ones who are teaching and guiding, and they're super powerful and they're super important. But the women that I need to reach next are these women who weren't feeling safe talking about their shame or their abuse or the silence or whatever. And so it just was so beautiful. So I actually took all of those images and I ran to all the galleries in my hometown and said, look at this, you need to put this up. And I had my tour coming, and I felt like it needed to happen before the tour. And then, some guys who were from Thunder Bay who own a really awesome coffee shop here in town said, we'll display them. And in 2 weeks we had organized this black and white gallery and did it as a fundraiser. And it was like flowing out the doors. There was a line about the doors, and we got all kinds of media coverage. Yeah, it was. So the gallery has actually been, and it needs to be more, but it has been very much an integral part of what we do. And it's just a matter of timing, because it will be in bigger galleries. Absolutely. Across
I think
Canada.
That's a brilliant idea. Do you think that this was helpful for a lot of those women that weren't so vocal in the group, that they could do it through photographs as opposed to having to speak it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's why it got so popular. And of course, women love to do selfies, let's be honest. Yes. So they were actually just selfies. They're all, I think there were a few of them that weren't selfies, but the majority of them were selfies that they did in their bathrooms. And they took a picture, and they flipped it over into black and white filter and posted it. And it didn't cost them anything. It was a way for them to express themselves. And then they also had something stored that was really empowering for them. And I invited them to share their stories, but they didn't have to, but most of them did.
That's what I was just going to ask, is did this help them to be vocal about their stories? So
yes.
art, see, again, it shows that art can be very cathartic and
oh
very
gosh,
therapeutic for people.
yeah, 100%. And it was really incredible to watch that. Some of the women posted several pictures actually. So they got it became their daily thing that they did for a few weeks, and they just posted every day a new picture, a new word, a new part of their story. And so many of them said, I've never shared this before. I didn't realize I felt this way. I hadn't really accessed this emotion. This is bringing up all kinds of stuff for me. Like It was just super cathartic. And so of course, when I put them on display publicly for the public to see it, like the gallery has traveled with me to all of my live events.
Amazing.
It comes with me to every meetup, every live event. But when I actually had them in this space that was the Uncommon Woman Black and White Gallery at this coffee shop, and people came, and men and women, and came and just stood and stared and wept, because these images just spoke to them. And we didn't name the woman or the story. We just put the picture up. And everybody got to create their own story around it. So
that was my next question: is did men come out and see it, and how did they react? How has their reaction been to this gallery? And do men come out when you're out touring? Are men in the audience as well? And what's that like for you? And what's it like for them? Have you spoken to them?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, in 2018, it started at the gallery. The gallery, I would say, 30 to 40% of the people that were there were men.
Wow.
So, and the men were moved. I mean, men experienced sexual abuse. They experienced bullying. They experienced body shaming. They, all of mental illness and addiction. So the men were actually quite emotional at the gallery, and it had quite an impact, and there was a lot of buzz around it.
Yeah.
And of course, the hosts of the gallery were men.
Yeah.
They're the owners of the coffee shop. So men, that was kind of the beginning of the introduction of the Uncommon Woman into more of, into a community that was for men and women. And then at the Uncommon Woman live events in 2018, I had actually men involved in the events, either speaking from the stage or my camera crews. Like, it was really just bizarre, but I have a lot of men in my life, and good men, my family and some friends. So there were a lot of men involved and in the room, and there were men in the audiences supporting the women who were speaking, right? Children, husbands, brothers, friends, partners. And so the Uncommon Woman has actually become a platform that welcomes men and women. And if you go to the Uncommon Woman community page on Facebook, for example, you'll see that I did an online tour recently, and I think I had 4 male speakers: Jay Bradley, Dr. Stephen Fonzo, my brother Roy, and David Kohar, who's one of my mentors. So I had 4 men out of, 4 speakers of 13 were men.
That's amazing. That's inspiring, actually. It's nice to hear that men are, getting involved in things like this. It's a great thing.
Yeah. And
it just adds a different dynamic, a different perspective, which is great.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And it's also been a safe space for men to share their vulnerable stories. And I've had men, for example, on my online tour that I did recently on the Uncommon Woman page, the men who were speaking on the tour actually shared some of their personal stories, right? It gives them a safe space because they understand that that's a community that's completely non-judgmental. And so in this really beautiful way, it has also given men permission to step forward into a safe space and say, hey, here's an addiction that I struggled with, or here's something that I said to my wife, or here's what my present state of mind is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's tough for women, and I think it's tough for men too, to speak about things that they've gone through, that they've dealt with as well, because let's be honest. The stereotype of the man is, you're supposed to be this big macho guy and not show emotion, and things aren't supposed to bother you, and you've got to keep this facade on because you're a man. So to be able to break down those barriers and have men share their stories too, I think is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I love what I do.
Yeah, you're doing an amazing thing, that's for sure. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful with all of this?
Communication, I would say, is probably my it's my strength. And it's funny because my team, I've built up a pretty beautiful team this year, and every once in a while, you know, I get my hands into the pot of organizing and scheduling, and they'll be like, this is not your zone of genius. You need to take your hand out of the
Stay out of this.
Yeah, stay out of it. You're making it worse. But I've always known that communication, I was a teacher for 10 years, a high school teacher, actually, before I went into fitness. And then from fitness, you know, doing work with the Uncommon Woman. And the Uncommon Woman is all very much face forward. Lots of communication, lots of speaking, lots of connecting, storytelling. So that's my superpower. And I think it's also where I'm able to let people know that I'm right there in the arena with them. So I share a lot of my own stories and my own truths. And I'm able to do that in such a way that it makes other people feel safe in sharing their stuff.
Right.
And so I think in order to have a community like this, you have to be able to open up spaces that are really vulnerable and say, hey, you know, this is what we're doing here. And you have to kind of lead by example. So I would say that's probably what it is. Yeah. The communication piece. Yeah.
To date, what would you say is your biggest high or your greatest win to this?
The Uncommon Woman tour.
Yeah.
The first tour that I ever did was something that I had dreamt about 5 years prior or 4 years prior. And I wasn't really sure it would ever actually come to life. But of course, if you can dream it, you can do it. And I remember I was sitting down with a girlfriend in the spring of 2018. And she said, so this whole Uncommon Woman thing, which at the time was really more of just like philanthropic work. I was doing my coaching, my programming under the umbrella of Marlo Ellis. And the Uncommon Woman was just kind of like this thing that I had created over here that was feel good, you know?
Yeah.
And she said, about this thing over here, what's going on with this? Because I feel like this is actually where your passion is and where your future is. And I said, well, you know, what I'd really like to do is create stages for people to tell their stories. And she said, well, then do it. And that was like at an Earl's in Vancouver. And so what we did is I had a pink highlighter in my purse, and I wish I'd kept the napkin and a white napkin. And I kind of spread the napkin out, and we listed the cities with a pink highlighter that I thought I could do a tour in. And I did it like 6 months later, and it was Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Thunder Bay.
Amazing.
And when we did it, I just remember I looked at her and said, we did it. You know, she's one of my best friends and also my CFO. But, so I would say that to date, that was one of my biggest accomplishments. And that's just because it really was the beginning of my faith in this ministry, in this work. Yeah.
That's awesome. Many brilliant ideas have been hatched on napkins in restaurants and bars.
Right? I know. And
I love that. That's so amazing.
And I always say to her, I can't believe that we didn't keep that. Like, we didn't have the foresight. You know?
Yeah, that should be in a frame on your wall.
It's totally frameable. But, so yeah, I would say that the tour, and, you know, over the years, the tour will grow and expand. And it is really the platform that gives the most transformation, whether it's for the people who are present or the people who are speaking. It's just, you know, there's nothing, you can't beat in-person connection.
True, very true.
You can't. You just can't. You can do your best, but something about being in the room with somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So on these tours, what exactly happens? You go to each city, and tell me a bit about the actual event itself. What happens there? How long is it?
The events run for in the past, they've run for a full day. Actually, I'm looking in the future to 2021 to having it be a 2-day event, because one day just isn't enough. It's almost like you get really energetically charged and then it's over.
Right.
And because people come in very protected to my event, because they usually know what they're in for, which is 4 or 5 really powerful, painful stories that are told from the stage. And they also know that they might be hit right in the gut with one of them. And so people tend to come in a little bit protected, but really curious. And by the end of the day, they're cracked wide open. And so it's worthwhile for me to add an extension onto that and to have a day the next day that's with some of the work that we do.
Right.
So in the future, that's probably what the tour will look like. But generally what it's looked like is a full day, four keynote speakers plus myself. I've had pop-up speakers in the past who did shorter versions of a keynote, lots of interaction in between speakers. And so what I normally do is I would have a speaker come in and they do a 30-minute keynote, and then I join them for Q&A.
Yeah.
And the Q&A is an interaction, a conversation, a dialogue with the audience, which is probably the most transformative and most powerful part of the entire day. Is people stand up and share stories for the very first time on a microphone with the speaker.
Wow.
And it's just mind blowing, like they unveil a childhood secret right there in the room. And it's not a counseling session. It's just, here's my story. You've inspired me to open my mouth and literally unload this thing that I've been
I was just going to say, you took the words out, an unloading session.
Yeah. And the speakers are trained to just stand and hold space, and hug and hold and look them in the eye. And it's been cathartic and moving. And I've had women in the audience actually open up during the Q&A from the audience. And then the following year, having been through my professional speaking program, be on the stage the next year as a result.
Amazing.
So I've got some really cool stories like that.
That's inspiring for sure. For you too. I mean, that's got to make you feel pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah, it does. It's just the product of the power of storytelling. Yeah. Like when somebody stands on the stage and shares a story that's a very painful, powerful story, and somebody in the audience connects to that story to the point where they literally can stand up on their feet and say, this is my story too. And then be so inspired to move to a stage to then be the person to inspire. Like that's the impact of ripple effect. That's why I do the work I do. Yeah. That example right there is exactly why. Yeah.
So what kind of event space do you hold these in, and how many people, in just a ballpark number, would attend your tour events?
Well, the first year I did them all in theaters. That was my vision, except for the first one. The first one was done in a church in Toronto. There is a church that has been transformed into a really beautiful event space, and it's I believe it's on College. I can't think of the name of it right now, if you can believe it. Revival. It's called Revival Bar. And
yes, I know Revival. Yeah, it's a great spot.
So Revival, beautiful spot. So that's where I did it there, and then I did it in theaters. I always had a vision of it being very much in the theater space. Yeah. And then this past year, one of them was done in this really beautiful event space in Cal, and another one was done in a smaller event space here in Thunder Bay. Okay. And so it kind of trend, but they're all very, they have to have a very intimate, warm feel to me. I'm very careful about choosing the spaces, and, they're never in hotel conference centers, anything like that. That's just way too impersonal. Yeah. And everybody's very cozy. The speakers are close. There's a lot of crafting in this event to make sure that it's a warm, safe space. Yeah. For people to kind of break down. There's a lot of crying and there's a lot of emotion. It's a highly charged room. I've had people come in late to the event and say to me after, I walked in and I could feel the energy, it was tangible. I could actually feel it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. Mm-hmm. Let's take it down a not so serious route for a couple minutes. Yeah. What's your favorite word?
Oh gosh.
Or one of your favorite words?
Truth.
Truth. What is your favorite curse word?
Shit. Because I could always get away with that, it was just light enough that it was bad, but not so bad that my parents scowled at me. And,
What sound or noise do you absolutely love?
Waves, ocean waves.
Ocean waves. If you could have one superpower, what would that be?
Oh gosh. To take away everybody's pain.
That's a good one. Yeah. What is a passion of yours that you rarely share with people, and why not?
I love to sing. Why don't I? Yeah. I don't know. I probably just, I don't know where to do it. I do karaoke with my brother a lot, and we always jam out. But I love to sing. Yeah, I'm an alto, so I love to harmonize.
Excellent. What is your favorite quote? Or one of your favorite quotes, because I'm sure you have a bunch.
The most powerful people in the world are storytellers. Steve Jobs.
I love that. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Being truthful and feeling strong at the same time, feeling unstoppable at the same time.
Now, with the word empowerment and around the whole women's empowerment movement, do you think that word has been overused and sensationalized and hyped up by the media?
Yeah, you rarely see that word in any of my copy, or I mean, I use it, but I try to be very careful, because I do believe that people talk about empowerment, but then there's in parenthesis, as long as you look good, as long as you're saying the right things, as long as you're not pissing anybody off. To me, empowerment is being really freaking honest.
Yeah.
And being able to move through your life knowing that not everybody is going to like you, approve of you, or have a good opinion of you, and you don't give a shit anyway. And to me, that's empowerment. So an empowered woman, in my mind, is a woman who kind of like that hashtag no shit's given, you know, it's really being so grounded in your truth that you are. I like to use the example of the palm tree, that people can bend you. You can be in the most powerful of tropical storms, but you will not break. Your foundation is just so much that nothing can take you down, you know? And so that, to me, that's empowerment.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Amazing. Can you share a situation that's occurred in your life that you feel provides insight as to your character, who you are, who Marlo is?
Say that question again.
Can you share a situation that's occurred in your life that you feel provides insight as to who you are, your character?
Wow, there's so many. But, you know, I take myself back to my story in 2012. That was really a pivotal moment for me in my life, because I didn't think that I would ever find myself in a situation like the one I was in. Right. And two things that proved to me that I was not as strong as I thought I was, and that my foundations weren't nearly as, I needed to work on my foundation, my values, the things that I thought I had all dialed in, I didn't. And it came out, and it was glaringly obvious that I had somehow along the way allowed myself to be lost. And so I found myself in an abusive relationship, and that was kind of the bottoming out for me, right? And I had to do a lot of work. And so that is an important time for me, because I now help other women see that it's not the end of your world. It's the beginning.
That's an amazing way of flipping it and looking at it. It's not the end. This is a whole new book we're writing, a whole new chapter.
Yeah.
That's an amazing way to look at it. I've never thought about it that way. That's great.
Thanks. Yeah.
If you could sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with anyone in the world, alive or dead, who would that be and why?
That's such a good question. I recently said that I would love to have sat at the feet of Maya Angelou.
Okay.
And listen to her, because there's so much about her that I find sacred. I feel like she was kind of like heaven on earth. You know, here's a woman who experienced all kinds of terrible things, but she was also very liberated and very free as a woman. And there's a lot about her sexuality and her womanhood and her wisdom. She was very forward thinking. But I also believe that she's a great healer and a great prophet. And I would have loved to have sat at her feet and just listened to her speak, you know.
That's pretty powerful.
Well, she spent all of these years mute. She didn't say a word for many, many years. And what she did was she read all of these books and memorized them.
Wow.
Shakespeare and just all of these. Yeah. And so she's brilliant, you know, she's a brilliant woman.
That's incredible. I didn't know. I know of her. Like, I've heard the name and I've read quotes and things about her, but I don't really know much about her. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, she was raped as a young child, and she told her family, and her family went out and somebody killed the rapist.
Wow.
And so as a little girl, she thought that when she opened her mouth and shared things that people died. So she stopped speaking for, I think, 5 years, or I can't remember exactly how long it was. And so she went completely mute, but she read.
That's
and she
unreal.
read every book in the library practically and memorized them. And when she started speaking again, you know, she was reciting entire books and yeah.
That's incredible. You know, it's funny that not funny, but that the story went that way, that she spoke about being raped and the family, somebody went out and killed the rapist. Usually, from my experience in talking to people that have gone through things like that when they're younger, it's shoved aside and shoved under the carpet, swept under the carpet, not to be spoken of ever again, like it never happened. So that's quite a paradigm shift to see the total end of the other end of the spectrum, where her family or whoever took it the other way.
Somebody, right? Mm-hmm.
Wow. And to have that kind of effect on a child.
And imagine the brilliance to be able to memorize. Like, she memorized whole books and whole plays and whole, and
that's incredible.
It is. And of course, I believe fully and completely believe that was all part of her divine plan, because she came out as this beautiful writer and poet and prophet of good and of women. And she was a strong feminist. And, you know, it was Maya Angelou that said, of course I'm a feminist. I've been a woman all my life. Why wouldn't I be stupid not to be, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like she was a very strong feminist voice. And of course, you know, growing up as a Black woman, feminist, you know, she was just very liberal with her beliefs. And so I feel like she was set on a certain path to blaze the trail for other women.
Triggered by that one event, that horrible event.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
might have got some of the facts wrong. I'm pretty sure that's kind of like the gist
of the story.
The gist of her story is that it's just really quite remarkable.
That's mind-blowing. It is. It's absolutely remarkable. It's mind-blowing, actually, that one event like that triggered this whole different world.
Yeah.
Wow. How do you define success, Marlo? What does that word mean to you?
Fulfillment. I just, you know, I've had lots of different kinds of success in my career and in my life. And when I feel most successful is when I'm most aligned with my work, with my tribe, with my family. And if I'm able to have the freedom that I desire, and it comes from the work that I do and when I'm aligned. So the less aligned I am, the more difficult it is for me to feel free and liberated and abundant. And the more aligned I am, the more it comes to me. So that's how I define it.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
That women do lead.
I love that. That's amazing. Because I don't know, I worked in the corporate world for 12 and a half years, and even still now, I fully believe that there still aren't enough women in positions of power in the corporate world. Then there's not nearly enough. We're not where we should be with that still in 2020. And I think that's pretty sad. I mean, now you're seeing a shift where women are taking on responsibility of becoming entrepreneurs, which I think is amazing. That sets a trail or blazes a trail. But in the corporate world, women still are not recognized and given those positions. And I think that's horrible in 2020 that we're still not there yet.
Oh, I know. I was just having this conversation about a month ago with a male friend of mine who, you know, we just have very different perspectives.
Right.
And I said, if you take a look at the statistics, you know, women only take up something like 5 or 10%, you know, of the highest leadership roles in these large corporations. And it was a staggering statistic, and I had to keep looking at it to make sure that the dates were right. But
is this really 2020?
True. But the other thing was, I do recognize that there are a lot of women that have stepped into CEO roles of their own organizations.
Yes.
And so that's a different statistic. And so, there's hope that whether these women are in leadership roles in their own organizations or others, that women are stepping forward and saying, I'm empowered. I'm using this word empower in the way that I like to use it, which is I'm going to empower myself.
Yeah.
If nobody else is going to acknowledge that I have the ability to be as powerful and as impactful as a man, I will then empower myself. And to me, that's badass. And that's when you step forward and you say, you can hit me all you want and you can't break me. I'll bend, but I won't break. And I'm just,
there's your palm tree analogy, right?
There's your palm tree. Yeah. Yeah. So, as a little girl, I really wanted, I think had I been brought up in a different time, I might have been in a leadership role, as a minister or something. That's what I'm actually referring to. As a young girl, I was really interested in faith and in speaking to crowds and groups. But in the world that I was brought up in, there were no women at the front of the rooms in my churches and in my environment. And that's not because my parents really advocate that. My mom is a feminist, but it was just the church that we were in. So I look back, I've actually spoken a lot about this recently in my social media, that my upbringing as a young girl in the church impacted my belief about women at the front of rooms and leadership. And so I've had to rewire my mind around that. It was an interesting correlation I made just recently around my life work and stuff.
Do you think the word feminist has been overused or saturated?
I think it's misunderstood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I believe, if you look up the definition of feminist, it's somebody who believes that men and women are equal. Right? Should have equal rights. We're not equally capable. I think that men and women are very different. I mean, yes. I've never seen a man birth a child,
Well, I was just going to say women are much stronger than men. Everyone stereotypes men as you've got to be this big, burly, strong guy. And no. We're nothing compared to the strength women have.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. Even that though, I'm careful to say things like that because I believe that men are really strong,
Yeah.
Just different. We're equal. We're equally amazing in different ways. And it's, of course a man can't birth a baby. And it's not fair to say because a man can't birth a baby, he's not strong because that's not a fair, it's not a fair analogy. Right. But I've seen men do crazy things like lift cars. And I'm like, oh my God, I could never do that. But to me, feminism is all about equality.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there has been a negative spin on the word feminism and claiming to be a feminist for decades, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there was a time when the feminist movement was so aggressive, but it's because they had to be. And I feel like those women were doing what they needed to do at the time to be seen. I can't imagine having been brought up in the 70s when all the commercials on television were like, make sure that your husband is happy when he's home from work and put on his slippers. And
that's crazy. That is absolutely nuts to me.
Like that kind of stuff. Because now we use those as social media memes. It's a big joke, but that's what was splashed across media.
Yes.
And so of course those women were aggressive and loud. And so, there's a time and a place for everything. But as a feminist in 2020, for me, it's all about know your power and know your skill and your strength and where you can't, and then know those of other people as well. Like be aware that men are also incredibly beautiful and powerful and strong and wise. And they have this skill set. And together, if we could just see that we're actually built to offset one another, that we're actually really good together. If we could accept that and embrace that and as a collective, then feminism wouldn't be so scary for so many people. We don't have this thing called masculinism that everybody's raving about. Right?
Right. We're just built differently. The bottom line is we're built differently. That's all.
Yeah. In every way.
Yeah.
In every way. Right?
But it's funny. You talk about the 70s, and yes, we've all seen those memes, and we've seen the commercial. I mean, I was a kid in the 70s, so. But for me, I didn't see that, like, I didn't grow up in that environment, because for me, I was raised by my mother and my grandmother, actually. So
Right.
I was raised by women. So I have always seen women as strong figures because I was raised by two women. So for me, that was never a thing in my mind where the man comes home from work and he sits on the chair and the wife fetches his slippers and his pipe and makes him dinner. And I never grew up with that. So I've never seen that type of thing. That's never been part of my life. I've always seen women as strong because I was raised by two women.
Right.
So it's very different for me in that regard, but I've seen all the memes and I've seen the commercials, of course. And I think it's just pathetic that that was even put out there. But again, that was the time, and that's how things were perceived and done.
Well,
right?
they were establishing a society that was patriarchal, and so the best way to do it is to use media,
yeah,
to do it. And post-war and all kinds of stuff, wanting women to take care of the man. He's been working so hard, and and what's really interesting is that that wasn't really the world that I grew up in either. However, just a few generations away from me, that it was like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, it's just a really interesting time. I feel like we're in such we have such an opportunity to change the way that things are, so that we're a healthier society. And there's been a lot of resistance around it, but I feel that the resistance is why you see this word feminism coming back up, because and it's coming back up in a different context. Women are starting to say, there are a lot of women out there anyway who are self-proclaimed feminists, but who are surrounded by powerful men and happy to declare that that's important to them, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I feel like this is kind of like the new wave of feminism, is that women are establishing their own organizations, and they're more millionaires, female womeners than ever before. And, this kind of stuff. Right. And I feel like this is the new wave of feminism, which is women saying, we're kind of done with all the old bullshit. So we're just going to we'll be over here doing our thing, and you guys can,
if you'd like to join us, come on over. If not, you can stay over there.
You're going to be fighting a really difficult
You'd be left behind.
That's right. Yeah.
I think it is the new wave, and it is the way things are going, and it's the way things should be going.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
So to finish off here, do you have any big projects that you're currently working on that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I guess one of the big things that's coming up is the Uncommon Woman podcast, which will be launching in June.
Awesome.
And that's a big platform. It's something that we've been working on for a while, because it's going to be an opportunity for so many women and men actually to share their stories, right? And to talk about, we're going to give it a little bit of a twist, and we're going to go into some spaces that we haven't really gone into before. So I'm looking forward to that, because I feel like it's going to bring a whole new wave of exposure to the ministry.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a little bit more of a ministry. So there'll be a lot more of that kind of a feel on it. So I'm really excited about that. So that's probably the big project that we're working on right now. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Well, I'd like to have you back at some point after you've launched that, maybe a few months down the road, and we can have you back on, and you can tell us how that's going and speak about that a bit. That'd be great.
Sure. Always happy to share.
Well, once again, I'd like to say thank you so much for being a guest today, Marlo, and thank you for sharing a little sliver of your life and your experiences, and actually sharing what you do to help other women. I think it's incredible what you're doing, and I wish you all the success going forward with it. I'm sure it'll be huge. Just keep doing what you're doing. I love it.
Thank you so much, Brad. Thank you for having me on.
Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, the host of Empowerography. My guest today was Marlo Ellis. She's the founder and visionary of the Uncommon Woman and the Rose Gold Leadership. Thank you again, Marlo. Have a wonderful day. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you. You too, Brad.